We are live.
Yay! Welcome to this rare Thursday live stream. I am Old New Dude. He is.
Richard York, Astro's trueborn son.
My sister said something about being able to see your shirts and not mine, so I made sure to angle the camera. I got the Borogs of Moria. Uh, it's not House of the
Okay.
Dragon, but it's a pretty cool shirt.
All right.
Bran 1. Oh wow, there's a little bit going on in this chapter.
This is our introduction to the Walder's Frey or Walder Freys, I guess. Probably Walder Freys is better than Walder's Frey, but
Yeah.
whatever.
In preparation for this chapter, um, Richard was like, "We need to watch the Fray in the Snow, the
Yeah.
2 episodes from Preston Jacobs." Which shout out Preston
Yep.
Jacobs, man.
Yep.
You're a god when it comes to theories in my book.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you've watched any of these, you know how it goes. We'll start with Brains of the Operation. Richard, he will say what he saw in the chapter, and then I'll jump in with my stupid stuff every now and then. So take it away, Richard.
Thank you,
Oh
sir.
wait, time out. Shout out to Lizzie,
Oh
her
yeah.
son's name day. Real quick, happy name day to her son. I think he turned 15 today or
Happy name day.
yesterday. But okay,
Happy name
now
day.
now you can go.
Yeah, and she had posted an outfit, and I thought it looked quite good. Her
An
her
outfit.
Yeah, she had. Wasn't she the one that posted that the outfit that said um, she thinks I'm crazy and BFF or something?
I
You know what
didn't
I'm
see
talking
it.
about?
I have to go
You know
back
what
and
I'm
look.
talking about? All right, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking something else. I think it's Lily. Anyway, um, so there's something I wanted to mention last episode, but I kept getting distracted. Which was yeah,
I got.
I'll put it back. Um, Something I wanted to mention last episode, which was that I think George has confirmed that there's more Melisandre chapters coming, and I'd like to remind people that our POVs know more than what we see. For example, Ned knows how many children Scarlett O'Hara has, 3 on the page and 1 on the screen. I meant Lyanna Stark.
Yeah, there
See
you
Triplet Targaryen's episode 1. Anyway,
go.
even if you think the King's Guard all died, Lyanna did have at least one child. I think most of us would agree. And George deliberately conceals what our POVs know. So it wouldn't, and we think Catelyn knows more than she's letting on, and we're in her head too. So I think Melisandre knows more than what we see when we see Melisandre. And so anyway, the point is, I think he's capable of hiding things from us, even as we're in people's heads.
Yeah, he's like a politician. He chooses his words very carefully
Mm-hmm.
before he puts them
Yep.
on the page. Ned is a prime example. He knows more about the Tower of Joy
Right.
than what a fever dream could tell us. He knows more
Right.
about John that could be told to us, but he doesn't
Right.
divulge that information. And Mel's
Yeah.
another one of those characters that there's a lot going on that he won't have her say uh, just to keep
Right.
it mysterious for a bit longer.
Right. Right. I kept wanting to get that point across, and I kept kind of forgetting to get that point across. So anyway,
That's fine.
uh, Bran preferred the hard stone of the window seat to the comforts of his feather-bedded blankets. A bed, the walls pressed close and the ceiling hung heavy above him. A bed, the room was his cell and Winterfell his prison. Yet outside his window, the wide world still called. So the world is calling, perhaps the heroes call.
There you go. Westroad Wide Web.
Of late, he often dreamed of wolves. They are talking to me, brother to brother, he told himself when the dire wolves howled. He could almost understand them. Not quite, not truly, but almost. As if they were singing in a language he'd once known and somehow forgotten. So I like this lingering feeling of having been summer.
Yeah. Well, also it's a I think it's a gentle hint to Bran eventually being able to understand God speak. The language on the wind.
Yeah,
Uh,
that makes sense. The Starks had wolf blood. Old Nan told him so. Though it is stronger in some than in others, she warned. Hard to say if this others could be implying that there's wolf blood in the others.
yeah. I think you're about to skip something. Um,
Okay.
they talk about the Maester Lewin did not think so. Wolves often howl at the moon. These are
Mhm.
howling at the comet. See how bright it is, Bran. Perchance they think it is the moon. And as soon as I
Right.
hear moon, I know I've said it on here before, but um, to a question Lady Thistle had at one of the book clubs,
Ah.
I said that the faceless men, the three days of the new moon, they bring Arya in, and that's because they can't bounce information off of the moon. I don't know if this with the wolves is another call out to that.
It's also interesting. It could be symbolically, um, tying into LML's theory, right? Because it's sort of tying the comet to the moon,
Yeah, I
right?
definitely got moon meteors out in the
Yeah,
union from that,
yeah.
but
It's sort of the concept of right, and we see a lot of this whole scraping at the moon kind of thing, right? And so I don't think there was literally a moon that was destroyed. I think what's going and I think what's really happened is that there's a scratch across the face of the moon that releases a meteor shower.
yeah, that'll do it. That meteor
Yeah.
shower would bring down meteorite, which could be made into high iron content swords.
Right, and
They would,
it also could potentially kick up dust and block out the sun for years.
yeah, I think the falling of the wall is going to do it in the for the next long night.
Your wolves have more wit than your maester, the wily woman said. They know truths the gray man has forgotten. The way she said it made him shiver, and when he asked what the comment meant, she answered, blood and fire, boy, and nothing sweet. Bran
Hey,
stepped in chill.
before you go on,
Sure.
is House Blackwood or their house words opposite of House Targaryen
I don't
or
think so.
Blackfire?
I don't think so.
Okay,
But
well, I mean,
but I do think we're supposed to think blood and fire, fire and blood, right? I think it's supposed to.
right.
I think it's supposed to be one of these things that matches the concept of the return of dragons and
Well,
Targaryens.
with Targaryens it being fire and blood, and then this being the opposite,
Yeah,
blood and
makes
fire.
sense.
In
Yeah.
my mind, it just Blackfire just popped in the head, and
Well,
if
and
the
maybe
baby,
and maybe that's part of why he's considered calling the second one "Blood and Fire," right? Is because he wants it to be the words of maybe he hasn't officially said that, but maybe it will be.
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, how many babies were born in the tower? Whether it's Winterfell, Tower of Joy, three babies. If they're there's a better chance that they are bastards in my book than true born
No, I
Targaryen.
disagree. I think this whole point is about bigamy. I think the whole concept is about bigamy.
Okay.
Well, but then you could argue, well, that then they're the children of the second marriage, and that's the whole point that the York children were because bigamy isn't legitimate, then therefore, right? So from that perspective, you could argue that they're bastards either way, whether or not it's about bigamy. You could say that well, that the concept, right? That that bigamy, that the children of the bigamy, the second marriage are not legitimate, right? I mean, that's the whole concept of the York children, right? So
Right.
you could argue that still makes them bastards, essentially.
It's also the backbone and the prime rule of law that gets overlooked in Fire and Blood, the House of the Dragon.
Right, right. The
You
children of
pointed it
the
out
second
all the
one,
time.
right?
Page what 114 of
Two,
Fire
no, it's like 203 or something.
203. Okay,
204? I can't remember.
I can hear.
I can't remember. But it's something somewhere in that kind of range.
Yeah.
Bran asked Septon Chael about the comet while they were sorting through some scrolls snatched from the library fire. It's the sword that slays the season, he replied, and soon after, the White Raven came from Oldtown bringing word of autumn, so doubtless he was right. The old man did not think so, and she'd lived longer than any of them. Dragons, she said, lifting her head and sniffing. She was near blind and could not see the comet, yet she claimed she could smell it. It be dragons, boy, she insisted.
I love that line.
I mentioned previously, it seems everyone is correct, right? This is that these sort of blend together, and you say Targaryens and dragons and changing of the season, and they're sort of all correct.
Right. Well, the line "It be Dragon's Boy" just makes me think of something that Captain Jack Sparrow would say or something. Sorry.
Bran did not remember falling, yet they said he had, so he supposed it must be true. Every time we get this pattern, it seems to be false, right? Including Sansa accepting Arya as her true-born sister. right?
Yeah, as soon as I read that, I was grinning because I'm like, I know Richard is grinning after that sentence.
Summer had howled the day Bran had fallen, and for long after, as he lay broken in his bed. Rob had told him so before he went away to war. Summer had mourned for him, and Shaggy Dog and Greywind had joined him in his grief. And the night the Bloody Raven had brought word of their father's death, the wolves had known that too. Bran had been in the Maester's turret with Rickon, talking of the children of the forest with Summer and Shaggy Dog had when Summer and Shaggy Dog had drowned out Lewin with their howls. Who were they mourning now? Had some enemy slain the King of the North, who used to be his brother Rob? Had his bastard brother Jon Snow fallen from the wall? Had his mother died, or one of his sisters? Or was this something else, as Maester and Septon and Old Man seemed to think? If I were truly a direwolf, I would understand the song, he thought wistfully. In his wolf dreams, he could race up the sides of mountains, jagged, icy mountains taller than any tower, and stand at the summit beneath the full moon with all the world below him, the way it used to be. So there could be a lot of foreshadowing there, and particularly the idea of Bran omniscient enough to understand the song, as you mentioned, right? And
yeah.
Anyway, it kind of reminds me of the fact that it's the song kind of reminds me of the Song of Ice and Fire and Prophecy and so forth too.
Yeah, there was another part in here where he's talking about how the castle plays tricks on the sound. 1 minute they sound like they're
yeah.
Well, that reminded me of a Catelyn chapter later on, which I want to say it was like, I don't think it was the first. It's the chapter of the Whispering Woods, and then she's talking about the queer sounds and everything traveling. And our my point of view, or my thought was, because she closes her eyes and concentrates or something like that, and then boom, the sounds play. Queerness on the trees or whatever, and I'm like, well, could that be her skin changing?
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. It would make sense that she ought to have. We've seen that Ned actually had started to have some dreams, and he was in the Wolf's Wood back in Winterfell when he would dream, and which makes you wonder if he's having wolf dreams and he somehow managed to bond with one of the wolves back there or something.
Right.
And then yeah, so we know that all their children seem to be magical, right? And so the implication would be that they have the gift as well, right?
Right. And I don't know who he pointed it out or whatever, but there's just as much chance of there being magic on the mother side, the Tully side, almost as much as the Stark side. With the what is it, the Wentz or what's the witch from Harrenhal?
Ghost of High
No, the Harrenhal
witch. Yeah, Lady Wentz, and yeah, that's Catelyn's mother's side of the family. Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
No, you're right. When I sleep, I turn into a wolf. Bran turned his face away and looked back out into the night. Do wolves dream? All creatures dream, I think, yet not as men do. Do dead men dream? Bran asked, thinking of his father. In the dark crypts below Winterfell, a stonemason was chiseling out his father's likeness in granite. Some say yes, some no, the maester answered. The dead themselves are silent on the matter. Do trees dream? Trees? No. They do, Bran said with sudden certainty. They dream tree dreams. I dream of a tree sometimes. A weirwood like the one in the Godswood. It calls to me. The wolf dreams are better. I smell things, and sometimes I can taste the blood. So we believe the tree is Brendan and the crow is not.
Exactly.
And later on, he'll specifically tell us that the tree appears in the crow dreams. And when we see the tree in his dreams, it's in a crow dream. And so if you're claiming that Bloodraven is the crow, are you claiming that Bloodraven is simultaneously two things in his dreams that are right next to each other? That seems a little weird. So it sounds almost impossible, to be honest. So yeah, if you believe that the tree is Bloodraven calling him north, then it would be really weird for the crow to be Bloodraven.
Right. Well, I mean, we get the when he meets Bloodraven and everything, and he's like, "I've watched you since your birth. I was there present in your first dream." But he never, it's like, I'm calling to you, but he never says, I talked to you here and you talk. We had a conversation type thing going on. It was the three-eyed crow. They had plenty of conversations, some of them one-sided, but it was still an understood conversation between Bran and the three-eyed crow, but there's not a
Yep.
conversation between Bran and the tree that the tree keeps calling him, but they don't actually have in dream conversation.
Right. And the explanation that you'll often hear people say is that you don't know how you appear in dreams. And we know that's false because the crow specifically talks about being a crow and how he has wings and Bran might also have wings. And have you always been a crow? Have you know, and it's a specific question that is discussed. And so we know that they specifically talk about the crow as a crow. And we know that Bran, when he's in John's head, he knows how John is perceiving him when John talks about how he has three eyes and so forth, right? So
Yeah.
so he's well aware of how John is perceiving him as well. So
Well,
it's just a
understand.
false claim. I
Yeah.
I understand people trying to explain it, but it's just it's that explanation is clearly false from what we've been shown.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can understand their point of view, but
Yeah, it's an interpretation that's intended, but for the author to get across, as we said, right, that these books are ambiguous. He hasn't necessarily committed himself one way or the other. He's deliberately trying to portray ambiguous options to the reader,
yeah,
and that is one of the interpretations that he absolutely intends the reader to get, right. In fact, he puts it in the appendix, right, and says that it's correct in the appendix. So he has told you that you're in the appendix that you are correct, right. I mean, if you read the appendix, it specifically says the three-eyed crow, a Night's Watchman named Brendan, right? It tells you specifically that he's the three-eyed crow in the appendix.
right.
So
But
it's perfectly reasonable to read a book that tells you in the appendix this person is this crow, and to come to the conclusion that this person is this crow. That's
yeah,
very reasonable. I cannot fault you for that interpretation.
right. But we swing way over to
Right,
their people.
right. Right, and of course, it also tells you that John is it's bastard in there too, and we and while we believe he's that's trueborn son, other people also tend not to believe that he's his bastard, even though the appendix specifically says he is. So don't necessarily assume that the appendix is telling you what it's telling you what you're supposed to believe at that point, not necessarily what's correct.
Right.
Both of them were called Walder Frey. Big Walder said there were bunches of Walders at the Twins, all named after the boy's grandfather, Lord Walder Frey. We have our own names at Winterfell, Rickon told them haughtily when he heard that. Says the boy who's named after his grandfather and whose brothers are named after the king, John Arryn, and their uncle.
There you go.
The Lord could make them swear oaths and answer questions. They didn't have to tell the truth, but the oaths were binding unless they said mayhaps. So the trick was to say mayhaps so the Lord of the Crossing didn't notice. Then you could try and knock the Lord in the water and you've got to be Lord of the Crossing, but only if you'd said mayhaps. So Walder might really believe this since he sneaks the mayhaps into his offerings to Rob.
Yep.
Mayhaps some sausages. Anyway.
There you go.
He's ahead of me in the line of succession, even though I'm older. Only by 52 days, little Walder objected. Neither of us will ever hold the twins, stupid. I will, Big Walder declared. We're not the only Walders either. Sir Stevern has a grandson, Black Walder. He's fourth in line of succession. And there's Red Walder, Sir Emond's son, and Bastard Walder, who isn't in the line at all. He's called Water Rivers, not Walder Frey. Plus, there's girls named Walda. And Tyr. You always forget Tyr. He's Waltyr, not Walder. Big Walder said airily, and he's after us, so he doesn't matter. We've mentioned arm and hand injury symbolism as Tyr, so it's an interesting name. Sir Roderick decreed that they would share Jon Snow's old bedchamber, since Jon was in the Night's Watch and never coming back. Bran hated that. It made him feel as if the Freys were trying to steal Jon's place. They steal Rob's place, which is arguably really Jon's.
Yeah.
If I had my legs, I'd knock all of them into the water, he thought bitterly. No one would ever be Lord of the Crossing but me. Mayhaps. Wolves can't play. You stay with Bran. And he did, until little Walder had smacked Rickon with the stick, square across his belly. Before Bran could blink, the Black Wolf was flying over the plank. There was blood in the water. The Walders were shrieking red murder. Rickon sat in the mud laughing, and Hodor came lumbering in, shouting, Hodor, Hodor, Hodor. After that, oddly, Rickon decided he liked the Walders. They never played Lord of the Crossing again, but they played other games, Monsters and Maidens, Rats and Cats, Come Into My Castle, all sorts of things. So Come Into My Castle sounds like another guest right reference.
Yeah. what just popped in my head right here is you have someone hitting a Stark with a stick, and then uh, you got the wolf running in. Well, you had Arya and the butcher's boy
Yeah,
playing with sticks, and
yeah.
then Joffrey, and then I mean, it's a little different, but that
Ah,
it just brought that scene into my mind.
yeah. That's was that Sansa's first chapter in game, and this is
Bran's
Bran's
first
first
chapter.
chapter in Clash, and it's kind of repeating the same thing. Yeah, I like that.
You had mentioned that last time, didn't you?
Oh, I mentioned that some of the chapters seem to line up, like especially Tyrion line up with Eddard's, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that there may be others that are kind of paired together like that is interesting. Rickon even showed them the deep vaults under the earth where the stone mason was carving father's tomb. You had no right, Bran screamed at his brother when he heard. That was our place, a Stark place. But Rickon never cared. So Theon as ward was shown the crypts. Bran just doesn't like them. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
clearly Theon is a ward. These are wards. Theon was shown the crypts. Theon knows the crypts well. Has been taught all about the crypts. So it's just that Bran doesn't like them. It really
Right.
is.
Isn't it? My memory's not the best in the world, but didn't Preston talk about that at Winterfell? You have Bran, Rickon, and the two Walters that know where the entrance to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
crypt.
and that was just in the if you just watch those two videos, then yeah, that's in
Yeah.
he talks about that in there. Yeah. This will give you dreamless sleep, Maester Luwin said as he pulled the stopper from the jar. Sweet, dreamless sleep. It will, Bran said, wanting to believe. Nope. Is it the wolf dreams again? Bran nodded. You should not fight so hard, boy. I see you talking to the heart tree. Might be the gods are trying to talk back. Osha is wise.
I wonder if in regular people that aren't skin changers or wargs, if that actually does work, if they have dreamless sleep. Their body, they have
Right.
dreamless sleep.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I imagine.
a skin changer or a warg has another body to go to.
Right.
So maybe
Right.
their
No,
body.
I think the Maesters probably have experience with this, and they know that that's how it's supposed to work, right?
Right, right. I'm just saying that skin changer or warg, since they have a second body to go to, they go to the body that does not have the potion in it, and
Right.
they
Right.
drink that.
Yeah, it doesn't work because that's not what their dreams are. Their dreams aren't what ours are. Yet when the darkness closed over him, he found himself in the Godswood, moving silently beneath green-gray sentinels and gnarled oaks as old as time. I'm walking, he thought, exulting. Part of him knew that it was only a dream, but even the dream of walking was better than the truth of his bedchamber, walls and ceiling and door. So I'm glad he isn't dreamless, and Osha has it right.
Yeah.
Cold iron and splintery wood closed off the only holes through the piled stones that hemmed them in. His brother would stop at every hole and bare his fangs in rage, but the ways stayed closed. He'd done the same the first night and learned that it was no good. Snarls would open no paths here. Circling the walls would not push them back. Lifting a leg and marking the trees would keep no men away. The world had tightened around them. Beyond the walled woods still stood the great gray caves of Manrock. Winterfell, he remembered the sound coming to him suddenly. Beyond its sky-tall man cliffs, the true world was calling, and he knew he must answer or die. The hero must answer the call.
Yep.
And up next, we're going to head back to Arya.
Yeah, that was awful quick for Arya chapter 2. Jumping back into her.
Yeah, jumping right back. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, usually when that happens, there's a really good reason why he does it. Because there's definitely some information he wants you to get real quickly.
Yeah, I'm not quite certain why this is sort of going rapid fire around. Maybe that's part of the point of in the first three books is that he treats the reintroduction as something that's needed, but he does it at kind of a breakneck speed and gets you right back into the action.
Well, it's definitely fast paced, and he there's short chapters. This next Arya one is another short chapter. but he
Well,
bounces
and
you
this book is
around.
notorious, especially with the Blackwater. This book is notorious for doing that, right? To kind of rapid fire approach to the chapters.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming it's to keep your brain off balance on what it should be looking at and what information you should be keeping above others. So if you keep you
Didn't this
bouncing
remind you
off,
of John's dream? Didn't this remind you of John's dream?
yeah,
The specifically, what was the part really reminded me of it? Anyway, there was something about it that just there was something about it that it's no good. Didn't you say it's no good or something like that?
I don't know. I have to go back and look.
Part of it was only a dream. I could have sworn. Oh yeah, well there it was when Summers. Well, when he's Summer, he says it's no good, right? He learned that it was no good. He had done the same the first night and learned that it was no good, right? So his brother's
Yeah,
doing, and learned that it wasn't good. That it was no good. That reminds me of John and his shouting that he's not a Stark, but it's no good,
right.
right? And so this is a dream, and it's sort of a recurring dream in a way, and that it's the wolf dreams, right? And John's having his recurring crypt dreams, and this is a chapter that's sort of about the crypts as well, right?
Kind of.
Anyway, it's just kind of anyway. So I just kind of saw that it's no good thing. It kind of reminded me of John's dream.
Well, I mean, he sticks little bits of information all over the place, and he puts it in the weirdest spots. So after watching the Preston Jacobs of Frey in the Snow, I think sticking in that Rickon showed the Walders the crypts
Mm-hmm.
is for later on when we do have
Right.
the Frey in the Snow. I mean, it's just a little piece of information. It's 2 sentences in the entire chapter, but it's information that someone like Preston Jacobs uses all the way back to, okay, now we got a dead Frey in the snow.
Right.
And this is the information that is important because
Right. And the idea that he was actually found right near the entrance to the crypts, right?
yeah. I mean, Preston's, goodness. I think I'm pretty smart, but Preston's like at a whole new level.
Yeah. Um, I used to just skim books, right? And he talked recently about how bookworms they don't actually absorb what they're reading and don't see the details that are being planted and so forth. That he's not a bookworm. That he reads things carefully and thinks about them, right? Because what he is an auditor, by the way, right? And that's his actual job.
Well,
right. So his actual job is to kind of read between the lines and figure out what's really going on in government reports, and he must be good at it.
He must be very good at the job. I know there's certain people out there that kind of look down their nose at Preston Jacobs, or if you say Preston Jacobs, they roll their eyes. I mean, I haven't watched all his videos, but in the 20 videos.
And he knows he knows that he's likely wrong about, as he says, I'm probably wrong about half of this stuff, right? He realizes that I would argue that it's because what we have here is an author who's deliberately ambiguous and leaving himself open to different options, and he's going to go through the weeds of winter in order to get the next book out, right? He's going to have to pull a bunch of these seeds that he's planted, and so I would argue that what's actually going on isn't so much that he's wrong about half the stuff as that George needs to simplify, and anyway, I think that George really does intend things to be ambiguous. He really does intend, and I think he's made that kind of clear with his discussion of oh, you think Jon Snow's dead, do you, right? Like I said, he kind of begged people to interpret things the way the Order of the Green Hand does, right? He's kind of saying he intended it to be ambiguous, and so they were like, well, how could that be, right? And so I think that they maybe haven't fully grasped the concept that it's ambiguous, and that George confirming one interpretation doesn't automatically make the alternative interpretation invalid.
Well, it's like the index. I mean, it being an index doesn't make the other non-true.
Right. Exactly.
It's like the what was it, author's annotations or whatever. It was like the bolt that they pulled from uh, Tywin
Right.
Lannister. The bolt
Right.
being pulled so rapidly and
Doesn't
all
rule
that
out the
oozing
possibility.
out that caused the odor, that caused the smile. But it doesn't say that there's no poison in the stuff that came out. It's not the act of poisoning that
I don't.
made it.
I don't know. He was claiming that caused the smile, but in fact,
Well, I
you know
mean,
what I think caused
the
the smile.
smell, yeah, well, the smell was the problem, and
I think Joanna Lannister caused the smile.
it's true. Uh, but
All
the
his
bolt
smiles
being,
wanted to hurt her alone.
yeah, there you go. I have to every time I get to that, I always have to read it so closely. Look how many hands you got now. I mean, it's freaking awesome. But him saying that the bolt is the reason for the odor, that's not saying that the poison didn't
Yeah, it
kill
wasn't
him.
poison. Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, there was
That's a little off
poison there.
interpretation.
It's just it didn't have time to kill him yet. And then when they pulled the bolt out, was it as soon as Cersei gets there, they pull it out. The Maester's
Yeah,
not even
Cersei
there.
ordered them to. Cersei apparently, he says, I think the annotation is right when Cersei said that they told them to do so or something.
Right,
I think
right.
there might
But
be a line where she tells him to pull it out, and that George comments that that's why he winds up stinking.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm with Order Green. Oh, I got in trouble yesterday. My wife was going through checkbook, and apparently, StreamYard charges me $34 a month. And I'm like, well, I'm on the basic $25 a month. And she's like, well, you need to find this out because they charge me $34 a month. There's another charge. You get $5 a month for Patreon. What's that for? And I couldn't remember who I had Patreon as sending $5 to because I canceled most of them. But I looked and it's actually Order the Green Hand. I've been sending them $5. I'm a heads night, sending them $5 a month for the last couple of years, and I just forgot all about it. Which I'm not going to cancel it. I mean, because they were the first YouTube videos that I
Sure.
watched. So I mean, my loyalty is to them. So even if I don't watch their videos or their podcast
Well,
now,
and we believe their main theory, right? Their main theory
yeah,
being that that John is the trueborn Stark, right? That Ned and Ashara are married, right? And that's
yeah.
sort of the key to getting to the whole triple Targaryens thing.
Well, I mean, I haven't watched a single video that they've done that I've been, no, that can't be right. I refuse to believe that. I'm like, yeah, that's probably right. Same with Preston Jacobs. I haven't came across, like I said, I've maybe watched 20 Preston Jacobs videos. And I haven't came across the one that was like, no, I'm dead set against that. That can't be true. I mean, they both
Well, even when
sound,
I am, I still appreciate what he's written, right? So I'm pretty sold on the fact that there's significant hints that the Tyrells knew that Joffrey was going to die, and so I'm pretty sold on the idea that they know that they really did intend to poison Joffrey, but I see where he's coming from, right? And there's a whole lot of people trying to kill Tyrion, and it would
yeah.
make sense for the Tyrells to want Tyrion to be dead too, right? And
Yeah, well, I mean,
they specifically wanted Sansa to be available for marriage. So they
yeah.
have motivation for
That's
wanting
the
him
ambiguous
dead.
part of it. You got two people that want Sansa being able to be married. You got the Tyrells wanting her to
Well, and
marry.
we know that Tyrion's been the target of Baelish since he framed him for Robert's dagger and claimed it was Tyrion's dagger, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
I
we
mean,
know that.
I'm all in on the intended victim is Tyrion, and the accidental victim was Joffrey. I mean, I'm glad
Yeah,
Joffrey.
I'm not, but I
It's
see where
okay.
he's coming from. That's my point.
Yeah. I mean,
Even the ones
we're
where I disagree, I could still say, oh, it's a
yeah,
reasonable interpretation. I get why you would think that, right?
yeah.
And
We're about 80-90% agreed on most theories. There's a
well, and
couple of them.
where we're not, it's mostly because we acknowledge the fact that it's deliberately ambiguous.
Right. We
And
just
that's my
taken.
point is he intends multiple interpretations, and I don't think it's unreasonable for somebody to have come to that. That's my point. I think there's
Like I said,
significant reasons for believing the other way, and there's significant reasons why I think the story is better the other way. But that doesn't mean that I consider it an unreasonable interpretation. So even when I
yeah,
disagree with him, I still think his interpretations are reasonable.
right. Like I said, until the books come out, everybody's right. I'm
All
gonna
right.
get that put
Well,
on the next
so
shirt.
So we're gonna try and do this again tomorrow, right?
Yeah. I mean, Arya is a short chapter. I mean, it shouldn't be a whole lot. It should be more setup, but there might be a thing or two in there worth definitely highlighting. But yeah, I definitely want to do it again tomorrow.
Sounds good.
All right. Tomorrow is Friday. Tomorrow is Arya 2 of Clash of Kings. Lady Thistle. Thanks for the special, or thanks for the stream. It's a day for special Thursday events. We are covering Tyrion and Davos for book club tonight. Woohoo! My kids ain't got school tomorrow. Ching. Means I can stay up late. Yes, Lady Thistle, I will be there.
I've got my raccoon panda here.
Yeah, that's a pretty dog. I got a Rottweiler mix named Lady. That my little man pantry is not big enough for me and her, because everything would be on the floor and she would be right here in the camera looking at herself.
I'd remove your thought there. So you see my pretty doggy.
There you go. All right. Well, we will see y'all tomorrow with Arya 2, and I will see Lady Thistle tonight on book club. We appreciate it. Have a good rest of your Thursday. I already missed Hump Day, but there'll be another one next week. So y'all be good,
All right.
and see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.